Created in the 90s, they said we'd never last. But 3 Stanley Cup wins later, they can all go kiss our ass. Blue sweaters bring the power, there's no safe place from our force. Another trophy in our sights, we're coming for the fourth. Thunder strikes and lightning rains, the bolts will charge, they'll break the chains. Feel the fury, hear the roar, we'll shock the league forevermore. Blades of steel carve through the ice, the lightning's wrath, you'll pay the price. A storm is brewing, a legend's might, the Tampa Bay Bolts ignite the night. From Lecavalier's legacy to Stamkos' fiery shot, a dynasty of heroes forged in battles hard fought. Kucherov's deadly magic, Vasilevsky guards the gate. The thunder rolls, the crowd erupts, our victory is fate. Thunder strikes and lightning rains, the bolts will charge, they'll break the chains. Feel the fury, hear the roar, we'll shock the league forevermore. Blades of steel carve through the ice, the lightning's wrath, you'll pay the price. A storm is brewing, a legend's might, the Tampa Bay Bolts ignite the night. But 3 Stanley Cup wins later, they can all go kiss our ass. Blue sweaters bring the power, there's no safe place from our force. Another trophy in our sights, we're coming for the fourth. Thunder strikes and lightning rains, the bolts will charge, they'll break the chains. Feel the fury, hear the roar, we'll shock the league forevermore. Blades of steel carve through the ice, the lightning's wrath, you'll pay the price. A storm is brewing, a legend's might, the Tampa Bay Bolts ignite the night.
You're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
4 seconds left, in front, happy moment, the Tampa Bay Lightning have won the first Stanley Cup! And the Tampa Bay Lightning have won the Stanley Cup! Lightning strikes twice! The Tampa Bay Lightning win their second straight Stanley Cup!
Welcome to RBLR Sports Lightning. I'm Joe Zamataro in for Jake Ricker. Look at me. I'm the captain now. Joined with Matt Gannon, and we have a great show for you as we do a quick recap of the games from last week, but importantly, discuss and preview potential trades for the looming trade deadline. And before we get started, Matt, how you doing?
I am tremendous. We're on an 8-game heater right now. The time's about to change. The sun's going to be setting later. I'm as good as a man can be. Maybe not perfect, but I'm doing very well. Joe, how about yourself, my friend?
I'm doing good. We're starting a little bit earlier than normal here, and that's I don't have my blue background going on because it's just too bright outside. I'm not gonna lie, it doesn't work out too well. I like that you mentioned though our heater. Let me pull up our schedule real quick because I think, do we have points in the last 10 games in a row now? Because the last loss that we had was the overtime loss to the Islanders, and in the game before that, dating all the way back to January 30th, was a win against the Kings. So we're on a 8-game winning streak, but we have points in 10 of the last 10 games.
So you're telling me we went through the month of February securing a point in every game?
We went through the month of February securing a point in every game.
That is crazy.
I mean, considering how long of a break there was for the Four Nations tournament and how the team has been questionable after long breaks, for them to come back to action and look as good as they have been looking, I think it's a huge momentum swing, and it's one of those things of getting hot at the right time, especially when we can look at the standings a little bit later, but when you've got other teams that are winning as well, the gap's starting to close in first. And you mentioned something in terms of the standings before. Where the Lightning sitting?
I believe they're in third still. The Leafs are also on one heck of a winning streak right now as well. So every 2 points we gain, they gain another 2 points ahead of us, which is, you're chasing their tail right now. They're actually leading the division. So right now we're 3 points behind Florida with 2 games in hand. And, that's a little preview of what's to come tonight, but I guess we'll get into that later.
Yeah. I mean, since we are talking about the standings, might as well just kind of pay more attention to it. The Maple Leafs are 8-2 in their last 10. The Panthers are 8-2 in the last 10, and we're 9-0-1 in the last 10. It puts us, though, right now at 4th in the conference, which is a marked improvement from where we were. I'd say almost like the start of the year. We really have done well to start to separate ourselves, and then even getting to the wild card, we're 7 points ahead of where you need to be for a wild card spot. So we're starting to make some really big strides with it.
Oh, absolutely. No, we're in a very favorable position to be right now as I'm looking at the goal differential still, which is one of my favorite stats to look at this year, leading the not leading the conference anymore. Washington's got us beat by 3, but still, to being third in your division as a plus 55 goal differential, that's one of the best indicators of a good team. So I'm really liking where we're at, how we're playing, and what everything is looking like and shaping out to be. There's still, 25 games left in the season, roughly. Like, there's still a lot of ground that you have to keep behind you, but there's still a lot of ground that you can make up in front of you as well.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that goal differential because it was improved over these last 3 games. As a quick recap here, the first game was on the 27th against the Calgary Flames, where the Lightning won 3-0, shutout by Vasilevsky. The next game was against the Edmonton Oilers, a 4-1 win, with Vasi having a .958 save percentage. And that, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that goal came pretty late in that game, right? It was right around. Oh no, actually, that was a relatively early goal, and then he shut him out the rest of the game. And then the Washington Capitals, who are in first in the conference, first in the plus minus there, and have just been lightning hot, beat them 3-1 as well.
Oh yeah, no, just carrying on from this 8-game heater. These are all good, 2 really good teams and a decent team in the Calgary Flames that they beat as well. And all pretty convincing wins. Like the Oilers game, I thought that got out of hand for the Oilers pretty darn quickly, and the Lightning played as good as they have, in their best games this season. The Calgary game, the first period was a little back and forthy. I don't think Calgary brought their best A game. They were missing the net a lot. I was in attendance for that game. I think I'm 5-0 so far at games attended at Amalie Arena. So if you guys want to keep winning, send me some tickets, I guess. But no. And then the Capitals game, an entertaining game. I wouldn't call it maybe our best hockey, but it was 2 clashing of titans. It looked like tight checking, really defensive hockey that the gates broke open late. The Lightning played really well. I wouldn't say they got lucky with the overturned goal in the first period, but it was the closest of the 3 games, but still a good game of hockey played by both squads.
That was an interesting overturned goal as well, because I think everybody thought the call or the challenge was going to be for goaltender interference, to me, it really looked like while McDonough did help, and I can't remember what player it was, crash into Vasi, the guy didn't stop himself, didn't make any attempt to not make contact with Vasilevsky and net in the crease, and like basically just kind of pulled him all the way over out of the crease to the side. I thought, watching it, it did look a little bit like McDonough may have pushed him, and I thought for sure on this challenge, if they challenge it, that it was a 50-50. But to have the crew, the video team, to be able to catch the high stick that happened way back in the defensive zone for them to start the whole play, and that be the thing that a missed stoppage of play is what overturned the goal. Hats off to the video team that they have for the Lightning.
Yeah, and I was watching this game on mute. I was talking with customers at work,
So
watching
you
the whole
probably had
thing.
no idea. what
No
was
idea.
happening.
I'm like, why are they challenging this? McDonough did push the guy into Vasilevsky. I'm not sure. Maybe they're seeing it a different way, but our video guys are just so good. So I'm going to trust them. And then after seeing, the overturn, I'm like, oh, wait, it got deflected off a high stick. Good call. So, yeah, credit to our tremendous video crew. They just, their success rate's got to be, 98%, something just incredible.
It's a far cry from what it used to be like a couple of seasons ago, where we figured we're just going to get screwed by Toronto on every sort of review. And now it seems like, we're, nailing it pretty much every time.
And goalie interference has been like a hot button issue this year for a lot of teams. And luckily, we haven't been on the short end of the stick this year like we have been in the playoffs. I remember there were 2 in the 2021 run. There was one against the Panthers. Braden Point got shoved into Bobrovsky or Spencer Knight, whoever was playing, and somehow we got a penalty for it. And then there was another one later on.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 just egregious, terrible goalie interference calls. They're not overturning a goal or anything. I don't think either of those, but just awful goalie interference calls. But yeah, again, huge shout out to the video guys. They're always on top of it.
Well, I do want to bring up the one thing where the Capitals absolutely dominated the Lightning. It was in the face-off circle where the Lightning barely won a third of the draws. It was 62% to 37% for the Lightning, and I think that probably helped Washington quite a bit in terms of puck possession, because you start the draw off with possession of the puck, you're going to have guaranteed at least a few seconds there added on to your possession time. But if it wasn't for that, I feel like the Lightning really would have been able to press even harder against the Capitals, because that's where a lot of the offense and or really just puck possession started, was on those draws. And if you start taking that away from them, you can really push play a little bit more. I mean, because they're pretty, even though that stat was so lopsided, shots on goal was 19 for the Lightning, 21 for the Capitals. Everything else was pretty much dead even, except for we got our power play goal in.
Yeah, and faceoffs is a huge thing. It is a bit of an issue this year, going back to the start of it, and even last year, actually, I'd say was a big issue when it came to faceoffs, despite having arguably 2 really good, actually last year, 3 great faceoff guys, and Anthony Cirelli, Steven Stamkos when he was needed, and Nick Paul, who's really good. And I'm forgetting Luke Glendening as well. Like last year was great, but somehow faceoffs were a huge issue. And the play couldn't compensate for losing possession off a draw. Like last year, despite, making the playoffs, and it wasn't exactly the prettiest year this year, and, recency bias is a thing. I don't think it's as apparent of an issue. Yeah, it was tough in this Washington game. If you could get that percentage up to, 45 or maybe even 50%, I mean, what does that add? An extra minute and a half of possession time? And a minute and a half of possession time can completely change how a game looks. Regardless, you won the game, by a 2-goal spread, with an empty net, of course. You can't really complain too much, but it is an issue. But the way the Lightning are playing this year, their forechecking is a lot better, the defense is a lot better, that it does get kind of muffled. So it's not a glaring issue right now.
Well, I mean, since we're talking about stats here, why don't we go to goals for? Right now, the Lightning are sitting at, let's see, looks like 3rd spot for goals for in the entire league. 211 goals for, where the Winnipeg Jets and Washington Capitals have 215 and 214. So, the Lightning's been a pretty high-powered offensive team, which, I mean, I think that kind of brings us right into talking about the trade deadline and what do the Lightning need. There's been a lot of things that, we can cover, because realistically, almost every position has a possibility of, like, you can look at it like we have a whole. Why don't we go with, your thoughts? What do you think that this team currently would like to fill a spot with?
The most obvious issue, and we covered on this last week, a little bit vaguer than probably what we're going to do this week, but bottom six scoring, and whether that's moving a guy from the second line, whoever is playing with Sorelli and Hagel, moving them down with an addition, and it could be an Alex Tuck or a Brock Besser. A winger is what we really need, is a bottom six winger. I think the center position's covered pretty well, top to bottom. So any kind of winger would be great. With JJ Moser coming back, I mean, it's been a godsend, really. I know he's not played, incredible Norris level defense, but it has been noticeable. I mean, there was a shutout this week, and limiting a really good team to 21 shots in a game. The defense does look different as a whole this year, but especially after this Four Nations break. So defense is a little bit lower on my priority list, especially when you've been running 7 guys as well the last couple of games. A little bit lower. So right now, bottom six winger is kind of the biggest ask that I could look for, whether that's, moving somebody down with, acquiring a top six winger like an Alex Tuck, like a Brock Besser. Those are names that have been thrown around. That's what I think the team wants. That's what I want. That's what everybody seems to want.
Well, I do mention that almost every position can be filled, and that is including maybe a goalie. You have Matt Tompkins, who's basically filling in right now. That's a very interesting one. Beverly posting that Eric Friedman just reported that the Lightning are interested in Gord. We'll talk about some of the possible targets here coming up next, but that would be a very interesting one. And Dan saying that Coop seems to love centers and wouldn't be surprised to see a center acquired to play wing, which is definitely something that the Lightning have done in the past, especially someone like Steven Stamkos, who basically played wing for a lot of his games. But going back to Matt Tompkins being a goalie, is he someone that can get us through the rest of the season, seeing that he basically is only going to be there for a back-to-back, and can we get a win with him in net? I'm not sure that we necessarily trade for somebody like him, because Vasi's going to get pretty much every single start once we enter the playoffs. But is it going to be an overload for him going through the final stretch by playing too many games? Is that something that you're concerned with at all?
Like, part of me wants to say yes. He's still only 1 year removed from a pretty brutal back injury, but at the same time, we know that this guy plays well, and he plays well when he's under fire, and when he's when it's really the whole team is in the thick of it, especially in a strong playoff push like this. And then in the playoffs, he's playing every single game. So I think if you can get a goaltender that can get you a win every other game, and not you having to worry about it, especially with Johansson coming back from an injury too. Who knows how well he's going to play if he does come back in time. So if you can get a serviceable backup, that'd be nice. But I'd like to see that maybe more involved in a bigger deal. Like, if you can get that as a throw-in, a good quality backup somehow, that would be nice. But it's not high on my priority list, because, again, Vasilevsky is going to – he's going to take the reins, barring injury. He's going to be the guy in the playoff and the playoff push.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you. Just figure I'd point out the fact that we still have Tompkins as our current backup. Reading that one again, don't waste assets on a backup. If Vasi goes down, the season's over. It's pretty true there. And really, it's more just of is Vasi going to maybe have to play too many games to get stretched out before we make the playoffs? I bring up the point. But since you mentioned bottom six, one thing that we did see in the past 3 games is we actually did get a little bit of bottom six scoring, and unconventional scoring even, we'll say. It doesn't get more unconventional than seeing Eric Chernak open in the slot and burying one. But we also got goals from Gage Goncalves, from Mitchell Chafee. We got another one from, see who else. We got a Paul goal. So we did, and I think last week we got
There was a
like
Glendenning goal last week. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have had a little bit of a spark on our bottom six in the past couple weeks, and I really hope that's something that continues a trend. Why don't we look at some of the possible targets, though, for this trade deadline? And a really interesting one that was brought up by Beverly there would be Gord, and I wonder what sort of a role he could play on this team.
That would be an interesting one. I don't know how I feel about that, because ideally there would be salary retention. I mean, what he's making 5.5 or 5.75, or maybe even over the 6 mark. And right now at the deadline, we'll be working with $6 million in cap space. And I don't think salary retention is going to be such a hard ask. He's on his final year of his deal. Seattle's obviously not making the playoffs, but you'll have to pay a little bit of a premium for salary retention. I'd like Yanni Gourde back. I think he could find a role on this team. His offense is not what it used to be. Even when he was still on the Lightning, his offense kind of dipped a little bit, but he still plays. We still relate every player that comes in here that plays gutsy and heavy and hard to Yanni Gourde. You know what you're getting with him, and I think he would have a very defined role on the third and maybe even fourth line. We know what he brings. Like we always talk about Brandon Hagler, Mike Yasman plays a Yanni Gourde style of game. So I like the idea, but at the same time, I think it's a little bit of fan service if that does happen. Like, it'd be great to have him back. Everybody loves Yanni. He's such a fan favorite, underdog type of guy, but it's a little fan servicey. I think you can spend your money, spend your assets for somebody a little bit better, somebody you can retain for a little bit longer, somebody who's got a higher ceiling, somebody who's a little bit younger. If you can get Yanni Gourde for super, super cheap and acquire somebody else as well, that would be a perfect scenario. You could bury him on the third line and get, a second line winger or something like that, if that's even possible. But there would be a lot of moving parts to make that happen. Is a Yanni Gourde move interesting to you at all, Joe?
I think the prospect of having him on the team is something that is worth looking at for a moment at least. And like you said, it really would be fan service. And we know that JBB is not one to really give into that pretty much at all. A la Steven Stamkos, which I teased you before that I had a little bit of a Stamkos note to say. And this was brought to me actually by Dan, that Steven Stamkos right now has the same number of points as Paul. Let that sink in.
Nick Paul?
As Nick Paul.
Ooh.
Let that sink in for a moment for those that that were completely hating on the JBB move. And talk about overpaying for a player. We'll move on from that, but just a funny little tidbit that he passed along to me that I thought was kind of interesting. So in terms of assets that we have right now, according to Puckpedia, which gives you a projected cap space, that at the actual deadline, we will have around $6 million of deadline cap space. We also have some potential players that we could trade as well. Ones that we've seen like Geeky, Goncalves, Duke. Some people have even mentioned possibly someone like Perbix. Could potentially be in the mix. So there are a few assets that we could trade for some of our players. I'm not sure if you want to really look at picks and what we have left to see, but I think that's a pretty good idea of what possibly we'd move, because I think that the picks, we just don't have many, so we'd have to send a player. Or any of those players someone that you could see going or you think are off limits?
Nick Perbix and or Darren Radish is somebody that I can see being moved. What is more coveted in this league than a right shot defenseman, especially an offensive right shot defenseman like Darren Radish? And hopefully teams don't know all of what they're getting with Darren Radish. And trust me, he's grown on me a lot. He's got a cannon of a shot and he can move the puck really well, but he needs to work on the defense. But right-handed defensemen, especially, cheap ones and semi-young but established, right-handed defensemen like Perbix, like Radish. I guess he's not what you would call young. Somebody I can see being moved. And, of course, young but also NHL ready prospects. Like Geeky's right on the cusp there of being NHL ready. He still needs some time in the pressure cooker. He did score a nasty shootout goal in Syracuse the other day. Just want to note
Yeah,
that.
I'm not sure if it was legal. I think he kind of
You
went
think-
backwards. I think he skated backwards with it, but it was still very pretty. He did that with such swagger and confidence that it was outstanding.
I mean, he can skate backwards as long as the puck is in a forward motion. I forget the shootout rules. It's something
I think
like
that's
that.
technically
Regardless,
true. The puck can't move backwards, but they are fairly lenient with it.
Anyways, but yeah, Dylan Duke or Connor Geeky, I have recently, since pretty much him being recalled up, fallen in love with Gage Gonsalves. I'm a really big fan of his game, so I don't know if I want to see him go because I think he's developing at a rapid pace. I think he's a really smart player. He's not going to be a 60, 70, 80 point guy or anything like that, but if you can get him to be a 40, 50 point guy who is smart defensively and maybe turn him into a bit of an Anthony Cirelli Jr. or something, Anthony Cirelli adjacent, being a smart, gritty defensive forward, maybe not even gritty, but he's really good at breaking plays up. He's responsible. He's smart at getting back. So he's somebody that I don't know if I want to go just quite yet. I think he's actually legitimately earned a spot on the roster. Connor Sherry kicked himself off the roster, but he kicked Connor Geeky off the roster, it seemed. So
you look at the way he's played. I got his game log pulled up here, which only tells you the more important stats like minutes and points. But if you look from the start of the season all the way until about January, let's call it 28th, because that was before he had his first points in. Since basically the beginning of the season. He had only had, I think, 2 points up until that point, and then turned January 30th, basically right at the beginning of this winning streak against the Kings. He did get an assist in that game, and then he basically has been going at least an assist, a little bit better than an assist every other game, or a point every other game, including a goal recently. His game has really, really changed within the last month of play.
And a hell of a goal too, a hell of a play by Nick Paul to get him the puck open in the slot. He's got a good shot, but he's definitely a pass first kind of guy, which is always acceptable in my book. Maybe not Phil Esposito's book, but it's okay in my book. But he's got a good shot too, and he's still rather young. What is he, 22 or something? So he's not a blue chip young.
He's 24.
Is he? Okay, well. So he's not exactly young, but the Lightning are no stranger to, having an older prospect come in like a Ross Colton or somebody like that and establish themselves as a roster player. No pun intended, roster player, Ross Colton. But they're no stranger to doing that. So I think he's somebody that, has earned a spot to play in the lineup and stay in the lineup. I don't know if teams also covet him because he's not exactly a beautiful, flashy name. Was he a first rounder? I can't quite remember.
He was the 62nd overall pick, the second round pick.
Okay. So, yeah, so not the biggest, flashiest name in the world. I don't know if teams are gonna value him very highly or value him as high as I am right now. So he might be safe, and that's for the better. So defensemen or, some of the guys that are down in the AHL right now, I could definitely see being used as a bargaining chip, as an asset. And then maybe, some mid to late round picks to get something else or to sweeten the deal or to retain salary, something like that too. I think we're in a good position. We're not swinging for Mikko Rantanen or anything like that. We're looking for middle six wingers. I don't know if the price is super high on that. And I don't know, how often do the Lightning get the big fish at the trade deadline? Like they always get the medium-sized fish, one that you can take home without any worms in it. For all my fishermen out there, big fish have a lot of worms in them.
Yeah, and the other thing is it's ones that same thing with fishing. If you're fishing redfish, now we just do an outdoor sports show. You have to make sure that they're not too large. You got to toss them back. some of these guys that are rentals, that are ones that you have to toss back at the end of a season, and then you give up assets in order to acquire them, has not really been a thing that JBB's been prepared to do. I wonder though if that doesn't change for this trade deadline, mostly just because we're starting to get towards the end there of the prime years for a lot of our guys, and swinging for the fences might be something that we do in terms of getting a guy that's basically on a rental.
I mean, we are getting to the end of some guys' primes, but as we're seeing right now, Vasilevsky is not reviving his career, but he's definitely having a bounce back season. Kucherov doesn't look like he's going to slow down anytime soon. Braden Point is still under 30. Jake Gensel is 30, I want to say. I think we've got plenty more years of contention in us if, management manages this team correctly. Like I'm much more optimistic about the future this year, this year than I was 365 days ago approaching the trade deadline, where, man, this really might be the actual last day of school, last run, last hurrah with this roster, especially with the departure of Steven Stamkos. Now, Victor Hedman, he's an old Clydesdale, nobody likes to say, but he's still got a lot of game left in him. I don't think that the window is closing too rapidly. You'd like, some bigger name prospects to be in the pool. Like right now, I think the only guy that you're really, really excited to watch in the future, is Connor Geeky, maybe Dylan Duke. And Isaac Howard right now, who is, I believe, the front runner for the Hobey Baker Award. So we're in good hands. Hopefully those guys all develop as we all project them to. But again, it's not as doom and gloom this year as it was last year, looking ahead.
Sure. I'm not looking at it as a doom and gloom, but also when you've got a record like they have right now, they're on a hell of a streak. They're playing really, really well. If you're going to swing for the fences, this I think would probably be the year to do it in terms of getting a guy that's a rental. I don't mean to give up a ton of assets, a la Tanner Jeannot, but I really mean that get a guy that's a rental, go outside of your comfort. We can talk about a couple of the guys that have been linked to the Lightning, because I actually have a chat here from Dan saying that the Fourth Period, which is is that a podcast or is that a publication?
So I think both. I think that's David Pagnana's. Well,
they tied Tampa to Rantanen. Tampa might not always get the big fish, but they always check in on them, is his comment there. Which that would be interesting if there's some sort of retention, or I'm not sure that I'd be sold on him coming in, but it's still one of those big fish that potentially could change quite a bit in terms of the lineup, pushing somebody down from the top six that then helps out the bottom six.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if you, I don't know, in a perfect world, if you did get Rantanen, like, I don't know what you give up for him, because obviously Carolina doesn't want to get fleeced twice over the same player, because right now the Rantanen experiment is not going very well. Nate just looks like a superstar in Colorado, like he was playing in Carolina, and Rantanen just kind of looks kind of lost, but he doesn't really fit in the Carolina defense first system. So yeah, if we do get, sorry, this is throwing me off. If we can get Rantanen from Carolina, I think the cap hit can go down to $2.3 million, which gives you room to make extra moves, maybe for another bottom six guy, maybe for another defenseman. But I don't know what you have to give up in return. I feel like it would be a named good roster player plus for Rantanen, and that would be strictly a rental. There's no way you're gonna reach his $13 million, $14 million ask, and I don't really want to pay somebody that just quite yet.
Yeah, I completely agree, and that would be a great example of a rental for us too, where there's no way that he's going to be retained on the season. So as Dan is saying, is that Chicago already retained half of his salary, and theoretically Carolina could retain another half of his salary, which does lower that to be someone that could be possible for the Bolts to get, given the amount of cap space. Someone else that has been on the radar for quite a while and talked about is Tuch. So he's a good player. I thought that, I can't believe that he would be dealt, to be honest. I'm surprised that there's been even talk that he'd be moved. But That I always thought would be a really good fit for the Lightning.
I think he's the best fit for the Lightning. He's somebody that would be a second line winger, somebody who could play very, very well with Hagel and Cirelli. I think he would fit perfectly on that line, and potential for a first line spot if Gensel gets bumped down, or even Braden Point or something like that. The first line is always going to be who's playing with Nikita Kucherov, but he brings a presence to the ice. Size. Yeah, I think he's like 6'4" or something like that.
He's 6'4", 219.
Shoot. He's no stranger to dropping the gloves, but that's not what he's known for. He's fine with hitting. He's a perennial 25 to 35 goal scorer. He's a leader in the locker room. Like, a lot of people were vying for him to be captain once Jack Eichel left. He was part of that Jack Eichel trade. He's 28 years old. He's got another year left at $5.5 million, I want to say. To me, it seems like a match made in heaven. I don't know what you have to give up to get him. Buffalo, actually, you know what? Buffalo wants young NHL-ish ready guys. They want defensemen, so maybe you could see I would
Geeky with a Perbix Radish.
I would do Geeky with Perbix or Radish any day of the week for Alex Tuch, because I think you have you get him for another year.
Cap hit of 4.75.
4.7. Oh my God. And I can't imagine his cap is going to go up much after that as well. Like, maybe in that $6 million range. He's somebody that I could see really being a part.
So for playing on a team, let's see if I can get to the standings here quickly and see how far down the standings are Buffalo right now.
Far.
Yeah, so they're a -12 in their goal differential, but he is actually, if I'm reading this right, he's a +13 on that team.
Oh.
So he's got 58 games played with 46 points, 22 goals. So he's playing pretty well, all things considered. He's got a goal in the last 3 games that he's played. He's got a goal in 4 out of the last 5. So he still is pretty hot right now. And that his last game against, I guess it was Nashville, so I don't know how much it counts, but he had 3 points in it.
Wow.
I think he'd be a great presence in front of the net too, especially like on a power play scenario, getting to that. I don't know what you're going to call the low player, and the one that stays in front of the net with the way our power play is set up. Not a bumper position, but the one that's down low off to the side. With his size, I think he'd do really well with it. And like I said, with another year and a right-handed shot, that definitely could be someone that's a huge target for the Lightning. I'd love to see him on the team.
I think the only issue with acquiring him is that he is a right-handed shot, and it seems like JBB hates righties on this team for whatever reason. Like, there's 2 on this team right now, 3 if you want to count Cam Atkinson on forwards only, but it seems like everybody on this team's always a lefty. So, jokes aside, I think he would fit in perfectly. Perfectly.
Yeah. Was it Chafee, though, scoring on the power play, being a right-handed shot that ended up scoring from basically where Stamkos' office was, skate into a rebound, and who knows, maybe he continues to mature and play well and can be a little bit more of a balanced threat. I think that you do have to, especially when it comes to the power play, we worked so well having more right-handed players. I think it would benefit the team quite a bit to be able to have be on your off wing for a little bit more play.
Mm-hmm. I think Chafee's going to develop fine into being a good middle bottom 6 guy. I like Chafee's game a lot. Another guy that's on the Lightning's radar, apparently they've checked in with, is Brock Besser, who's, I guess a shinier option. Brock Besser, I think he's got 1 or 2 40-goal seasons under his belt. A little bit of a dip in the production this year, and he's had some injuries health-wise, but he's a guy that rifles the puck. He's got a hell of a wrist shot, a great slap shot, great one-timer. He's a goal scorer through and through. He can get you assists. His defense is a little suspect sometimes from what I hear. Again, his injury history is not exactly ideal for a team that's been pretty healthy this year, knocking on wood as hard as I can. And I think the price would be a little bit higher, and he would also probably be strictly a rental. I don't know if we have the cap to re-sign him next year. I don't know if that's possible at all, because again, I'm in the Carolina school of I don't really like rentals. Like, if I'm trading for a player, I want to keep them for at least another year longer, and JBB also seems to be part of that school as well. Rentals aren't really our dig, but that's somebody that I've heard they've checked in on, It might cost you. I don't know what it would cost you actually, but I know Vancouver wants to keep him, but they are taking calls on him.
Yeah, he had 40 goals last season, as a matter of fact. And he was a plus 23 in that season. That was a pretty solid season for him.
Oh, Vancouver played great all last year, the whole team. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I think they just kind of internally imploded with some of the people at the personalities. Moving JT Miller out of there, who knows if that'll improve the locker room feel, but he's still going to be one of those guys that they'd have to re-sign, so moving him obviously is an option for them, and if he's an option for us, I think I'd be behind it if they retained a little bit of salary, but I don't think that they probably would for that. They'd just be grabbing for picks.
But I don't know. It's a lot easier to ask a team to retain when his deal is expiring at the end of the year, as opposed to, having some more term on that deal. You can get it for a little bit cheaper than, let's say what Chicago did trading Seth Jones to the Panthers. I think he's got another 4 years on his deal after this one, and they're going to be. I mean, it's not a huge amount, but it's a couple mil per year.
Well, so let's take a look at some of the trades that there have been around the league, some of the bigger ones, and that is the most recent trade that I saw was Seth Jones to Florida, and Chicago received Spencer Knight. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, that trade kind of surprised me from both sides. I didn't see that coming. Spencer Knight's had some really good performances. He's had some consistency issues. I don't know. You think that Seth Jones is going to benefit that team at all?
See, like a big part of me wants to be a hater. A really big part of me wants to be a hater because he's not what he used to be. I think he's in his 30s now. He's not the same.
Exactly 30. Yep.
He's not the same young defenseman we saw playing 85 minutes in a 5 overtime game a couple of years ago in Columbus. Like he was really good in Columbus, but his time in Chicago has not gone well, like it hasn't for everybody else in Chicago since 2018, it seems. And I hate to admit it, but Florida is good at churning out, defensemen that used to be good and, having them rebound their careers. I'm thinking of Brandon Montour. He was bad in Buffalo. Oliver Ekman-Larsson. He was bad in Vancouver. He was good in Arizona. They're good at reviving, good, BA tier level defensemen to revive their careers. So it could be a good pick, but they also sent a first rounder away with Spencer Knight. They have Bobrovsky, he's not necessarily closing in on the end of his deal. Sorry, the dog's going nuts right now. Hey.
So do we get a Morgan alert?
I think Eureka's tied up, but anyway, it's a curious deal for me. I think Chicago, ran away with a win here. They're going to be retaining for a little bit more. It could be a win-win, but as of right now, I'm thinking Chicago got away with a really good trade on their end because they don't have a bona fide starter. They have Peter Mrazek and Arvin Soderblom. Like this is a building block for the future of them. They have a starting goalie now. Spencer Knight has been shoved down. He's been backing up Bobrovsky, sometimes starting over him. He's had injury issues. He's had to step into the player assistance program a couple of times, or one time, maybe twice. But now, hopefully, he can put a good career together. There's been times where I'm, mother effing Spencer Knight because he is a good goalie sometimes. But the consistency isn't always there. But he's young enough that he can turn into a bona fide number one goalie. So I think it's a good move for Chicago in the most words ever said.
As Dan was touched on next with this, he has a comment that says, I think Ekblad is gone this summer. Jones is his replacement, plus they get one cup run with both. So it's a good point. If you're going to replace somebody and get them both together, I can understand it. I just am surprised that you would replace him with someone that's got a little bit more mileage, a little less speed, and he's always been that defenseman that I thought was going to end up being a lot better later in his career than I think he ended up doing. Someone that would be like a perennial runner for a Norris, but has come up a little bit short. Maybe it is a lateral move for them in the end, but even with the lateral move, they still have this season and aren't really going to go down per se. the next one to look at is Gustav Nyquist, who came from the
No,
Preds
he's already dealt.
well,
Oh, you're
I'm saying
talking about
he's,
okay. We're
yeah,
talking about
other
other
moves
teams.
in the
I
league.
thought you were
Yeah,
talking about to the Lightning. Okay.
yeah. Went to Minnesota for a draft pick from the Predators. I I think that's really good for Minnesota to be able to secure that one up.
I do too. I mean, a second round pick isn't exactly, a cheap pick. It still holds a lot of value in my opinion. But okay, this dog is going crazy right now. I do apologize to everybody, but I think it was a good tidy bit of work from Minnesota. Nyquist came off a close to 80-point season, I want to say, last year with Nashville, and obviously everything in Nashville has completely crumbled and been smashed in Smashville. So Minnesota, they need some extra offense right now. They're playing defense really well. That'll happen if you have a team with Zach Bogosian on it. But obviously, Kirill Kaprizov being out's a killer. It's killing my fantasy team right now. Ding. So I think it's a good move from them. Second round pick, again, not all that cheap, but for a guy who can get you 60 points, he can score, he can assist. And he played pretty good for Team Sweden, if I do remember correctly.
So I mean, we haven't really seen a ton of moves except for the Seth Jones move in the Eastern Conference. I know that it'll probably all start rapid firing here in the next few days when it comes to these trades, with the trade deadline being, was it Friday at I think it's Friday at like
It's usually 3 o'clock,
3?
I want to say, 3 Eastern. It's either that
right.
or free agency or both.
Yeah, so either way, it'll get wrapped up here on Friday. So we'll definitely touch more on that next week. To look ahead, actually, why don't we get to our 3 stars from this past week, and then we'll do our look ahead. Going back to the 3 games that we had quite a few standout players. So we'll call this the 3 stars, brought to you by RBLR Sports Store. Be sure to check out shop.rblrsports.com for all of your Lightning inspired RBLR merch. We've got Rays, Bucks, Lightning, Rowdies, all great buys. Help support the podcast and look good in the process. Shop.rblrsports.com. Let's run with our 3 stars, starting at number 3. And one of the reasons why this conversation has actually changed in terms of perspective targets during the trade deadline area, we're going to go with kind of an unusual 3rd star here with J.J. Moser, who comes back to the Lightning to really help shore up the defense, and it looked like they were playing a lot better with him out there.
Yeah, I prefaced it earlier in the show. He's not playing like a $9 million Norris winning defenseman, but he is playing exactly how he was before he got injured. Me at least, it seems like everybody, he's quickly becoming a fan favorite. He's a really smart guy. He articulates his words really well for, English being his 3rd language. He's a really, really good, cool guy. And just the way he plays, he shuts it down. He can move the puck. He's not afraid to get up, and get a scoring chance. Geez, I'm so sorry. Thank you.
There we go.
He's not afraid to jump up in the play. He just does everything, not perfect, but he just does everything well. I can't complain about a bit of his game and just what we've seen from him this week. He's +2 in 3 games, and he's just helped limit everything on the defensive side. He's given a lot of help to everybody in the defensive unit. Every defensive unit right now, or defensive pair right now, looks like it should be, looks like it was at the start of the season. So everybody looks like they're playing better with this free trade deadline edition of J.J. Moser.
And, everyone looks better because some of the players are no longer having to be in as big of a role. He's been playing on average about 20 minutes, taking him about 20 minutes of ice time every single game since he's been back. And with that, it allows people like Radish, Perbix, Lilleberg to have less ice time, which quite frankly, I think is what they need in order to improve their game and be a little bit less of a liability out there when you can put a better defenseman on the ice. And because that the whole team plays better, 2 goals in 3 games is pretty good defense for a team, and he's definitely a contributing factor to the team playing a little bit better.
Absolutely. I'm so stoked, along with everybody, that he is back and playing. And how hard is it to sit for what 2.5 months and jump back in and play top pair 20 minutes, 24 minutes a game? Maybe not 24, but over 20 minutes a game is not easy. I don't know. If he was staying in the gym, conditioning himself right, but you lose your conditioning pretty quick when you go down with an injury. So to jump back in and just start playing exactly the way you were when you got injured, perfect. Can't ask for anything more.
I always say there's no shape like hockey shape, and you just have to play the game in order to be in it.
Hmm.
And since we were talking about how good defense is playing, let's go with our second star of the week now. He's the guy behind the defense, the one that was making all the saves, Andrei Vasilevsky, who allowed 2 goals, 3 games, got a shutout. Potentially could have had two shutouts there if it weren't for just a small breakdown on really the play with the Capitals in order to allow Ovechkin to score on them. But outstanding performance in these past 3 games this last week. Honestly, he's been playing outstanding for about a month now. He's your second star of the week.
Dude, I mean, he is so back. He was actually named the NHL's first star of the week just a few hours ago right now. I mean, he's got an impeccable record, from the start of the season. He's second in wins right now. He's like third in save percentage of, goalies that played at least 10 games. He's putting together a strong, strong back half of the season. If it wasn't for gosh darn Connor Hellebuck, he would be my pick for the Vezina right now. So I guess all I can hope for right now is a Hellebuck crumble at the end of the year, and Vasilevsky just keeps playing the way he is. But he's playing the way we've always known him to play. He's not bailing out the defense so much. It seems like everybody's been playing really well. That'll happen when you put together 8 in a row. But man, he just looks like the Vasilevsky of 2021 again. He looks confident in his saves. He's tracking the puck really well. He's sharp in net. He's not getting lost. Again, that goes with tracking and his positioning. Everything he's doing looks like not the Vasilevsky of old, but what you know as Andrei Vasilevsky. So just re-cementing himself as the best goalie in the world.
I definitely think it's noticeable how much better he's played this season compared to last, where he did have back surgery, and there's a lot that goes to just getting your confidence back after going through something like that physically. You can still feel things that aren't quite right, and as you get more used to them or work through those issues, you can see that he's on top of his game, and it's looked really good. I always say that in order to win in the playoffs, you need your goalie to make all the saves he's supposed to make, and then a few he's not. And right now, I feel like we've got a goalie in Vasilevsky that, he's the guy that you want. He's playing the way that you want him to play when the playoffs come around, as of right now.
Oh, absolutely. And, just looking at his stats from the last week, or just in the most basic sense, he allowed 2 goals across 180 minutes of hockey. I mean, that's crazy. And almost only 1 goal across 180 minutes of hockey. And against 2 of the best teams in the league, might I add. So just hats off. Another tremendous year. Hopefully he can keep it up and get us closer and closer and closer to the playoffs.
I do want to touch on what Beverly said. The guy behind the defense, I thought you were going to say Blashill. No.
No.
He's not going to be one of our stars this week. But moving on, you said that Vasi was just named the #1 star of the week for this past week. Well, the guy that was named the #2 star of the week somehow, even though he had more points last week, was our #1 star this week, and that's going to none other than Brandon Hagel, who's coming in with 1, 2, 3 goals and an additional assist. He was a +3. He had a monster week, and you know what? If he had like 3 seconds left extra, I think in that Washington game, he would have put in another shorthanded goal if the time didn't run out before he could shoot that one into the empty net.
Yeah, I want to say he is tied, or if not leading the league for shorthanded points. Again, somehow I've got such a bone to pick with this. He did not get the first star of the week. I know it means nothing, but man, was it the week or the month? I can't quite remember, but he had more goals than McKinnon. He had more points than McKinnon. He had a shorthanded goal. Somehow they gave Nathan, and I bet you less ice time than Nathan McKinnon. And somehow He just gets awarded something else, but that's beside the point.
Name recognition. That's it. That's it. It's
Exactly.
the only reason why you do something like that.
Well, name recognition. Brandon Hagel has put his name out there since the Four Nations tournament. I mean, he has been the most underrated player in the league for, over a year now. I mean, just all the work he does all over the ice and even off the ice. I hear that he is just a machine off the ice. Like, he's regimented. He does everything he should be and then some. But after the Four Nations, I mean, people hated this guy. One, because he played for Tampa, and two, because he's a prick to play against. And pricks to play against are usually good players. And all of Canada has fallen in love with this guy. They see what he does. They see his work ethic on the ice. They know what kind of guy he is, because he's a funny guy too. That goes a long way in locker rooms. Future captain, he just does everything right. A shorthanded legend. He's great on the power play, great with an empty net. Oh, I can go on and on and on about him. And he is sneakily right now my front runner, despite being a winger, for the Selke Trophy. I mean, is anybody playing better as a defensive forward this year? It's not Barkov. It's not Elias Patterson. He's having a horrible year. I know they don't like to give it to wingers. I know it's kind of a center's award, but Mark Stone's won it in the past. Mitch Marner's been nominated for it. I think he, right now, is the front runner for the Selke. And you could make a case for the Hart Trophy, too.
I'd say the only, you definitely could. I'd say the only knock on him would be that he just hasn't been exposed enough to win those. I mean, because he definitely puts points up. He makes a difference on the ice, but it's really one of those things. I feel like he, until he was showcased in that face-off fight against Tkachuk, I don't think a lot of people really had known him unless you're specifically watching Lightning games. He just doesn't get the press. Dan pointing out right now in terms of Hagel. Hagel has more points than Point, twice as many as Stamkos. If you don't know his name, you need to watch more hockey.
And he has the second most even strength points in the league too. I don't even think that's counting shorthanded points, which I want to say he leads in as well. He is having an incredible season right now and is putting himself on the map.
Wow, yeah, it shows that he's fourth actually for the even strength points with these updated stats, but Nikita Kucherov is fifth, so he's actually ahead of Kucherov in terms of even strength points. And then going back to, because I did have points pulled up across the entire league. Right now, sitting at 24th in the league is Braden Point with 61. If we drop down to, let's see, Gunsel is at 34 with 56. So if he gets just a couple more points in this next game, getting him into the top 32. If he gets, let's say if he gets, I think he needs 3 points tonight to get him in the top 32. That'd give us Gensel, Point, obviously Kucherov and Hagel, all in, the top 32 of points, which is absolutely ridiculous when you think about it.
That is absolutely crazy. But sticking with Hagel right now, I mean, the pace that he's on pace for 40 goals. I mean, a couple of years ago when we first acquired him, Jake's hot take was 30 goals, which he just eclipsed the other day with that empty netter and could have had his 31st if there were 4 seconds more on the clock, like you're saying. And
I think Jake wanted us to mention his latest prediction, actually.
100 points, which, God, that would be crazy. And God, if that's possible. I mean, he might never reach it again, but as of right now, he has only gotten better every single year, every single week, every day he plays with the Lightning. He only gets better and better and better. You remember the first, when we first acquired him, he was good. You liked the way he played, but you wish, there were aspects of his game. Yeah, and that's a great way to put it, out of sync. And then improvement. And then the next year, last year, he scores 30 goals. And this year, he's on pace for 40 goals and 100 points. I mean, he's well over a point per game, second on the team right now, at one of the most favorable cap hits in the league. I mean, he is a contender for the best contract in the league right now. If he keeps playing this way, if he keeps excelling this way too. And the craziest thing about this player, Buffalo gave this guy away for free. He was a 4th-round pick from the Buffalo Sabres. They never qualified him. So Chicago signed him and acquired him for free and, got a pretty decent trade out of it. But my God, I don't care what we gave Chicago. It wasn't enough for Brandon Hagel.
Well, luckily it does help us with some of our other salary cap issues. The next time his contract comes up, that's going to be a tough one to swallow, but one that we can worry about at that time.
8 years from now.
Yeah. So for our top star of the week, giving it off to none other than Brandon Hagel. Let's take a look at the road ahead, which is not very long from now. We'll get our first game against playing against the Panthers tonight here in about a half hour. That's a big one because obviously it's a 4-point swing that we have on the line. A win here, looking at the standings, will put us still 1 point behind them, but with 2 games in hand still. So that could be it's a big swing. So I don't know if it's a must-win game, but it would do a whole lot to help us climb up the standings to potentially give us a wild card matchup. And then we have 3 other games this week that are home games. One tomorrow at 7 p.m. against Columbus. Then we have the Buffalo game Thursday at 7 p.m. and then Bruins Saturday at 3 p.m. So the Blues, Buffalo, and the Bruins, a whole bunch of Bs to close out the week.
I'm going to the Blue Jackets game and the Sabres game. The Sabres game, you want to say that should be an easy W, but we know the Lightning like to play down to their opposition. So I'm hoping I can, come back this show next week and say I'm 7-0 in these games. That would be great. But the Blue Jackets game is underratedly a very important game that we probably should win. Geez, I'm a mess today. I'm sorry. But Blue Jackets, they're playing really good. I don't think we're in any danger of falling into a wild card spot, but that's a team that's, nipping at at everyone's heels right now. They're playing chippy hockey right now, so that's a game ideally you'd like to win. But this Florida game that we're about to come into, if anybody's watching this later than it is, it'll be outdated. But right now, to me, this is the biggest game of the season. You might not think so, but you're, what did I say, 3 points behind with 2 games in hand. You can put yourself almost second in the division with this game. Give yourself a better points percentage with this game. Tug of war and talking at the same time. I'm sorry.
Well, you're right. Because it's not only about the points, but it's also showcasing the potential for your own team to really kind of get an idea of where you stand when you're matching up against other playoff teams. And tonight's is obviously a really big one. Do you have any last thoughts before closing out?
Yes, I do actually. I want to shout out the Bolt Report. Jake and Michael, they were featured in the Bolts Blogs article. I know neither of them are here right now, but I've got to to give them their credit. It's really cool. It's a really good article talking about pretty on brand deadline moves by JBB. So on theme with the show right now. Go check out their article. It's on the Lightning's website right now. So congratulations to those 2 guys. More great articles ahead for them. So good job to you fellas.
Very nice. One last thing to take a look at, and that's the last comment from Dan here. What are the odds a player stays in town Thursday night right after the Sabres leave?
Oh.
So we'll leave you with that. Be sure to like and subscribe on our videos and hit the notification bell so you will be notified every time we go live every week, typically on a Monday. Thank you very much for watching. As always, go Bolts.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.